got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
Welcome back to another episode of Trending Fantasy. I'm John Bauer. Find me on X at the Bauer Club. We have Mitch Sorensen at Dino MC. Mitch, we are piggybacking off of what we did on our weekly episode of Dynasty Theory a few weeks back, and we broke down my Dynasty quarterback tiers, and we discussed them and where you and Dan would have moved some players around. But today we're going to base it off of Fantasy Calc values, and this kind of goes back to what we did before joining the DD Fantasy Football community. Each and every week, we did an episode, a show called The Pivot Point, and really, it was using market data, whether Fantasy Calc, KTC, ADP, and we would look to identify market inefficiencies. So we're kind of getting back to that for this week's episode. We're going to be talking about the top 25 or so Dynasty running backs and where we believe those market inefficiencies may be. And then for next week's episode, we're going to be doing the same thing. I believe it's the top 28 Dynasty wide receivers, but playing in those margins, gaining those small edges, and finding those pivot opportunities where there might be some, like I said, market inefficiencies. So going through the tiers, and again, I tried to split it up based on Fantasy Calc, and like if there's a gap in the points, okay, I call that a tier break. So tier one, Bijan Robinson,
well done,
and Jahmyr Gibbs. And then there is a break between those two and Ashton Jeanty. The way we're going to look at this here, I'll be going through these tiers, throwing some questions over to you. And first up, should there be a tier break between Robinson and Gibbs and then Jeanty?
I want to say yes, just because I think there should be. But do I think it's actually going to last by week 3 in the season when Jeanty gets 80% of the running back touches for the Raiders? No. I think right now it's just one of those, we know how good he is. And as Dan would say on our Dynasty Theory show, generational prospect, Ashton Jeanty. He's really good, but we still haven't seen it in the NFL, right? And that's the thing. It's really hard to put him up with those two guys because they're the stars. I think Barkley would be right there if Barkley wasn't 28 years old. So Barkley's there for me, and Ashton Jeanty is right there. It's just you want to see it for a week. You want to see it for 2 weeks. You want something concrete there, because if I have Ashton Jeanty, someone offered me Gibbs or Bijan, I'm doing the trade immediately, right? And if I have Bijan, someone offers me Jeanty, I want something additional added to it. Just right now, that's how I feel.
And as a result, whenever I talk about it with the tiers, if I have 10 leagues and I have the opportunity in every league to take either Bijan, Jahmyr, or Ashton, would it be 33%, 33%, 33%? And for me, it would be. Because I do believe that Ashton Jeanty should be in that top tier. It's always tough when we look at these players and we say, well, they haven't done it yet. And by the time we see them do it,
yes,
it's too late. And I do think that we get that from Ashton Jeanty. You know, this is nothing against Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, who I think are just obviously absolutely fantastic. Gibbs has the potential, without a doubt, to finish as the running back 1 overall in 2025. And I'm not just saying that to suck up to a Lions fan over there.
Good.
But this is the market inefficiency for me. If I'm able to get, so like right now, Robinson on Fantasy Calc is the 6th overall player in Superflex formats. Ashton Jeanty 13th. So if you're in a startup and you're thinking the 106 versus the 201, you can get a decent ad there, right?
Yes.
So that's the market inefficiency for me. So whether you want to look at it from like a 7th round startup pick value, early 8th round, whatever the case may be, maybe it goes up to a 6th. There is that gap there for me that if you can take advantage, and this is where it's important to be able to capitalize on the market inefficiency, because I'll get trade offers from people that are in the Discord that have access to my tiers, and they'll offer me Genty for Robinson. Hey, JB, you have them in the same tier. Do you want to do the swap? Well, I'm removing the potential value gain as a result of, like, I'm losing the market inefficiency. I'm losing that edge. So no, it doesn't make sense to do it in that situation. But I think we're going to be talking about Ashton Genty very easily in that Gibbs and Robinson tier a month into the season.
Yeah.
So, and then tier 3 all by himself is Saquon Barkley. And I'll get to that in a minute, but how are you feeling with Barkley wedged in between those top 3? And then I'll just let everyone know tier 4 is Achane and Hampton.
Yeah, he's someone to where I would have him in that top 3. Like I was saying, if he wasn't 28, he is 28, but he's playing at one of the best offenses in football, behind the best offensive line in football, and that's not changing. And we know how much they're going to use him as a runner out of the backfield. Every year he has a chance to go full Derrick Henry and get 20 rushing touchdowns. We know the opportunity's there. We know Jalen Hurts stills a little bit, but you have to wonder if Barkley just ends up getting a few more of those touches. So for me, he's up there with those guys. It's just I could never actually pay that price for him. So while he's, tier 3, I love him on my, if I'm looking at my Dynasty rosters and you're telling me I could have 2 of Bijan, Gibbs, Genty, and Barkley, I'm extremely excited going into the season. And then when you move down to Devonte, Achane, and Marion Hampton, love those guys. And Tyreek Hill is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because we saw what he said. We heard what he said last weekend about how Achane isn't a good third down back. They want to use Jalen Wright. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense to me. But with Achane, I love him as well. And Hampton, it's just, I did have that worry when Najee Harris was there. I'm like, he's good enough to kind of keep Hampton from being that really 1A guy. Who knows when Najee's coming back to camp? So for me, Hampton is just, he is definitely those top 6 guys. As funny as it is to say, I love them. They're locked in for me. I want them on my Dynasty rosters. I am willing to pay their value and over their value to get them, because I think they're just such studs for what they're going to give you weekly.
The tricky one for me is, I seemingly am, I don't want to say on an island, but definitely go against the grain a little bit with Devonte Chan, because I have him as my running back 4. Mm-hmm. And I have him wedged in between the tier of Robinson, Gibbs, Genty, and then Barkley, Hampton. And to me, I think Achane is going to make a lot of people look silly this year.
Completely agree.
He's too small. Yes, a lot of it is predicated on the fact that Tua needs to stay healthy, right? Mm-hmm. If Tua stays healthy, that ceiling is just so freaking high. And he's still only 23 years old.
Dude caught 80 balls last year. 80. Well, 78, but still 80 balls last year. It's running backs don't really do that because they're just not on the field to catch that many balls, because there's so many rotational backs in the NFL now. So you're telling me that's, I don't even think that's his career year. I think he could even top it this year. After moving on from Jonnu Smith, I think there's a very strong possibility he gets up to 85, 90. So, you having him up there above Barkley, I don't blame you for that, to be honest.
And during, I think it was an episode of Dynasty Theory a few weeks ago, that was a trade scenario that came up, and I think most of the chat, they wanted the Barkley side. And I get the appeal. I really do. But we talked about it on this week's episode of Dynasty Theory. Whenever the bottom drops out from these older running backs, and maybe Barkley is going to be that Derrick Henry type where it's just go, go, go. And there's no let up there. But I just think if I have the opportunity, and again, that's the market inefficiency there, I'm moving Saquon Barkley for Devonte Chan plus. I'm moving Saquon Barkley for Amari and Hampton plus. So for me, out of those top 6, I think Achane is slightly undervalued. I think Barkley is slightly overvalued. And
Just know that you said that.
What'd you say?
Just know that you're the one that said that. Because when the Eagles fans come in here pissed off, it was John that said that. I could agree, but I'm not going to be the one that says it.
But I love Barkley. It's not anti-Barkley. I just like Achane more than I think a lot of people want to give him credit.
Well, we're going to have some anti-takes here, I think, coming up in the next tiers. The next tiers kind of make it a little bit more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this. I think it should be one tier based on Fantasy Calc, so I'm going to adjust it. Yeah. So tier 5, Bucky Irving, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Travion Henderson, Kyren Williams. Who doesn't belong?
Christian McCaffrey. We know that the ceiling's there. We know it. But Bucky Irving, he could have a very good year. Breece Hall, who kind of knows with the Jets pecking order right now. He's kind of the weird mystery one. But Jonathan Taylor, stud. Travion Henderson, young enough. And Kyren Williams depends on Stafford's back health, right? That's the big thing. If Stafford comes back, awesome. If not, if Kyren does, or if Stafford has any lingering health issues throughout the season, Kyren should be back down 3 or 4 tiers, to be honest. Because like you brought up previously, like so much of his fantasy potential is tied into his red zone touchdowns that he ends up getting. And so if they're not in the red zone, he's not going to get a lot of those and it's going to hurt him. Bucky Irving is one that still worries me. I think you used to disagree with me. I'm assuming that you still do. I think Rachaad White is just going to be just enough of kind of that gnat there that he can't. When Rachaad White's healthy, I don't think we see those huge weeks from Bucky Irving. And I know that goes against what a lot of the fantasy community believes. So that's why I just don't have a lot of Bucky Irving on my rosters. I think I have maybe 1 or 2 shares across all of my leagues because I just don't have that same faith that he's going to be able to live up to what the value is currently.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at that tier, I think based on their current values, I tend to gravitate more towards Breece Hall and Jonathan Taylor over a Bucky Irving. Mm-hmm. But again, like we saw the production, Bucky Irving, he's still going to have probably a very good year. But I do agree. I think Rachaad White is just good enough. But then you sprinkle in Braylon Allen with Breece Hall. And do they want to take that Detroit concept of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and try to replicate that as best possible? Now there's all this stuff like, not that this should be shocking, but the Jets offense has just looked abysmal during camp so far. So it's early. We'll see if that can turn around at all. But then you look at the rest of that tier. You mentioned Christian McCaffrey, and then Travion Henderson and Kyren Williams. The pivot opportunities there for me, it's a Travion Henderson who I think like you can get Kenneth Walker plus.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. A huge plus on top of him.
And today I got the sleeper alert that he's questionable now already. And I'm like, come on, Kenneth.
That's Kenneth Walker.
So that's through tier 5. And then is there anybody in tier 6 that you believe should be elevated up to that tier 5? So just to reiterate, tier 5 was Bucky, Breece, JT, McCaffrey, Travion, and Kyren. Tier 6 is Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry.
So for me, I think week 5 in the season, Chase Brown is going to be in that tier. Zach Moss is gone. I just think they're going to give Chase Brown so much opportunity that as long as he could stay healthy with that passing attack, I think it's going to definitely open up some rushing lanes for him. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. I just don't think there's anything that Josh Jacobs can do, and definitely Derrick Henry, to have them ascend. I think they're both great. I love this tier. If I could have these 3 backs on my rosters, I'm extremely happy. But Josh Jacobs is 28 off the top of my head. I think so. I'll scroll real quick. 27. He's 27. Henry is just old, but he's going to get
just old.
That's the thing, but he's going to give you like 22 touchdowns again this year. And so you're not going to devalue him for that, but he can ascend. We know what he's going to give you. And he can't go up in value. So my guy out of this tier, without a doubt, is Chase Brown. I want more Chase Brown on all of my roster. So he is a huge buy for me right now.
I think it's Chase Brown and Josh Jacobs. I think that gap needs to close between.
Do you think Josh Jacobs can really ascend though?
From a value perspective, absolutely not.
Okay.
No. And that's why I'm actually a little bit lower on Derrick Henry and I guess as a result, Christian McCaffrey just with the age, but then there's the injury concerns. But yeah, I think Chase Brown, like I have a really big tier. I have really all the guys we've talked about, then two of the other rookies, but I have Kyron, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, McCaffrey, Chase Brown. The wild card's Quinshon Judkins.
Oh, we'll get to him. Don't worry about him.
And then Harvey and Henderson. People are concerned about Harvey's immediate production now, but again, like you said, we'll get to him right now. Tier 7, James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey. And this is on Fantasy Calc, and those are running back 16 through 19. How are you looking at this tier? And again, kind of like how do you, which ones would you tend to gravitate towards?
Yeah, this is including rookie hype, rookie value. I know I'm going to have to pay more for these guys, but I want Caleb Johnson. I want RJ Harvey. I don't think anyone can persuade me to buy a James Cook share at this point at his price. Kenneth Walker, I love we had a lot of battles about Kenneth Walker when he came out, receiving profile. I loved him. You can't talk me into buying any more Kenneth Walker right now. There's just no reason to. I think even if he does well, I don't think the fantasy community is still going to like him because they're still, Zach Charbonnet. We don't really know with this coaching staff who they prefer, but there's still enough of that drumbeat, and there always has been ever since Kenneth Walker walked into the NFL, that I don't see his value ever going up. And so for me, there's so many good young backs in the NFL right now that I don't want to go and get I think James Cook can keep doing what he did in his magical year last year. Oh, hey, Kenneth Walker's actually going to stay healthy and perform at the rate that he has. And so I don't see any reason to buy in those guys because there's so many young backs to buy into now that I think their value can actually go up. And if not, I'm just losing a couple years, and these guys are going to be just as good, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's tough when you look at the players like a James Cook, Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker. And it's crazy because they're 24 and 25 years old.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the beast.
It's what we do.
You're not going to have these guys that rise in value, but at the running back position, do we really need them to rise in value? Like we talk about Derrick Henry. If you had him for the last 3 years, he wasn't rising in value.
That's the thing.
But you love what you got. So if I get really nice production from Josh Jacobs for 2 or 3 seasons, I'm not going to be upset because his value is not going to rise, but he's going to give me that production. So you said it's Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey, and it certainly makes sense when you compare it to Kenneth Walker and James Cook. Caleb Johnson, he's the one, like, I thought I was going to really love him. And then he lands in Pittsburgh. He's not far from me here. And I found myself not getting nearly as much because, and I talked about this before, but the way I navigated around rookie drafts. But if I had the choice between James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey, I would take the other 3 very quickly over Caleb Johnson.
Would you?
I would. But now
I do get it. I do. Yeah.
And it's a very sticky situation because that's with the expectation that James Cook stays in Buffalo. Like, I want him to stay in Buffalo.
Right. Yeah. If that changes, that changes the whole scenario. Honestly, if James Cook leaves Buffalo, I don't want any James Cook because I think he is a product of being with Josh Allen. So
just hyper efficiency, the touchdown rate, most likely unsustainable. And that takes us over here to tier 8. And there's 2 players here. It's Quinshon Judkins and Chuba Hubbard back to back. We know the production that Chuba has given. He's been very good. He gets rewarded with the contract. They try to bring Jonathan Brooks in. That hasn't played out nearly as well as they would have hoped. They bring in Rico Dowdle. Yep. And then the other Trevor Etienne. So when you're looking at Chuba and Quinshon, How do you view Quinshon? Because it's such a tricky and interesting situation. He still has not signed his rookie deal.
Yeah. So when the news first came out of he was arrested, I went out and I put a whole bunch of offers out to try to acquire Judkins. One of them was sending Chuba. I did a lot of David Montgomery for him, Chuba for him. And as soon as the more of the news came out on exactly what happened, I went and revoked all of those because I just didn't really feel the value was there for the headache that you could put up with this point. Because the Browns have still told him, stay away. I mean, that's still the case. And then, so I had someone come back to me this past week that I sent the Chuba for Judkins offer. They came back and offered Judkins for my Breece Hall. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. But I understand if you have Judkins, you spent the 106 draft pick on him, the 107, the 105, whatever it was, you're going to want that value back. Guess what? That value is not anywhere close now. It's just not. And so you could choose to hold on to him, hope that offense is good, he performs, and he gets that value back. But right now, I don't want to buy into him. I just don't want to. If you offered me him, this is going back to an earlier conversation that we had when we're talking about Judkins. But if you offered me him and I have the 201, I know it's the locked in 201, I am keeping the 201 instead of taking Judkins. I know there's a lot of people that, oh, that's crazy, get Judkins. I'm just staying away from that as much as I can, because as much as I like Judkins coming in, it's a headache I don't want a part of.
Yeah, and the more we talk about it, and it's not just here, but the more we talk about him in general, I don't think I can justify keeping him in that tier.
Yeah.
And I have him a tier above Chuba, now it's like I almost feel like he needs to be in a tier, but between Chuba, Henry, and Caleb.
Yep.
But above Montgomery and Kamara.
I agree. But see, I want Trey Montgomery for him right now. I don't think there's a huge reason to buy into him. And yeah, he is definitely a back that can re-raise in value and go back and go up higher than what he was even drafted at. Without a doubt, that is possible. That one is just one that I'm staying away from.
All right. That brings us to, we're going to clump together these two because they're close enough.
Yeah. Yep.
Alvin Kamara, Cam Scatterbo, who we talked about on Dynasty Theory this week, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, James Conner, Joe Mixon, Isaiah Pacheco. Outside of Scatterbo, veterans, over the next 2 years, Mitch, who gives you the most production out of Alvin Kamara, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, James Conner, Joe Mixon, and Isaiah Pacheco?
John, I am going to shock you with who I'm going to pick. It's Isaiah Pacheco. I have been getting so much Isaiah Pacheco this whole offseason because his value just isn't there. But I don't like... Sorry, Elijah Mitchell isn't going to really scare me off of Isaiah Pacheco, though. And I think that Chiefs offense is going to be markedly better than what it has been the previous 2 years. I think whoever that running back is, that's the running back that I want. And Pacheco's in that offense, so I'm taking Pacheco. And I love the other backs. I think Kamara's going to be good. But if you're telling me 2 years with Kamara and James Conner, I just don't know what next year's going to bring. And I still love David Montgomery for just that point per game average. He could fall in the touchdown every single week. We know that rushing prop is there to where it's pretty much even money every single week that he scores a touchdown. And then Joe Mixon, I don't want any Joe Mixon. If I could get him off all my rosters, I will. DeAndre Swift is a guy that I don't think he's a good running back. So while he is the starter now, I think there's an equal chance Roshan Johnson is the starter come week 5, week 6.
For me, I'm going to look at it the other way. Like Cam Scatterbo, he needs to be dropped down. And we talked about that. Tyrone Tracy, seemingly he is the running back 1 in that offense right now, based on beat reporters' information, based on now the hamstring situation with Cam Scatterbo. But are there any other running backs that were not listed in that top 28 that you would tier with that Pacheco, Mixon, Conner, Swift, Montgomery, Scatterbo, Kamara group?
Honestly, there really isn't. That is kind of the last of the guys that you feel really, really solid about. Like you feel solid about their play time. Tony Pollard might fit in there. I mean, he is probably the closest for me. And I help because I look down to your tiers. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a really good name there. But the rest, everyone else is
I got to move Brian Robinson down one.
Yeah, everyone else is just in the running back by committee thing, and they're all the 1Bs. None of them are the 1As. And so that's a pretty sharp cut for me on those tiers.
There's so many running backs. Like I'm looking at this tier that I have.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like that running back 2 with upside.
Yes.
Well, Tyrone Tracy, Scadaboo, I still think it could be a 1A, 1B situation, even though the beat reporters are saying otherwise. But then Ramondre, Najee Harris, Zach Charbonnet, Rashad White, Trey Benson, Jalen Warren, Jalen Wright, Jordan Mason, Tajay Spears, Braylon Allen.
Yeah. They're just
Tank
guys that
Ray
you're
Davis.
like, you're just waiting for something to happen for these guys. Maybe Tank Bigsby could be the one that rises up a lot, but we'll see. I mean, they have so many backs there. Who really knows who the starter is going to be and how much playtime that starter sees.
Yeah, it really is an interesting situation. They're saying a running back by committee. So that would just dash all of our hopes and dreams.
Exactly.
Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode of Trending Fantasy. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if there is a topic that you want us to discuss, please let us know in the comments below. Again, after you like and subscribe to the channel, because we'd be more than happy to talk about it. For Mitch Sorensen, I'm John Bauer. We'll catch everybody later. Peace.